شكرا للانضمام للندوة الافتراضية حول تنفيذ الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية بالمنطقة العربية، المؤشر 651 لأهداف التنمية المستدامة. قبل ما نبتدي بس بحب أوضح للجميع إنه الترجمة الفورية متوفرة من اللغة العربية للإنجليزية ومن الإنجليزية للعربية باستعمال زر الترجمة أو الانتربريتيشن. ممكن الوصول أو التبديل بين اللغة العربية والإنجليزية. بطلب من جميع الحاضرين معنا إذا أمكن تغيير الاسم إلى اسم المشارك يليه الدولة أو المنظمة اللي بتنتموا لها. وفي حال أي سؤال الرجاء يعني وضع السؤال بالتشات بوكس، ورح يكون في فرصة أيضا لطرح أسئلتكم مباشرة من خلال رفع اليد. نفسح لكم المجال للمشاركة بالوقت المخصص للأسئلة. فصباح الخير جميعا. يسعدني أن نلتقي اليوم بعد ما يقارب الشهرين على انعقاد الاجتماع التحضيري الإقليمي العربي لاستعراض منتصف المدة الشامل للعقد الدولي للعمل من أجل الماء، والذي عقد في بيروت 18-16 أيار مايو 2022. وقد أكد المجتمعون على أولوية تطبيق الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية من أجل تحقيق الأمن المائي من خلال التنسيق والتشريع الفعالان وتنمية القدرات وتبادل البيانات وتحسين التخطيط الرئيسي والإدارة على مستوى الحوض، وإرادة سياسية أقوى وإشراك أصحاب المصلحة المتعددين واعتماد نهج تشاركي. تزداد اليوم أهمية الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية في المنطقة العربية مع تصاعد التحديات. فاليوم يعيش أكثر من 392 مليون شخص في المنطقة العربية في ظل إجهاد مائي، وتستهلك 14 من البلدان العربية أكثر من 100% من مواردها المتاحة من المياه العذبة. ويوجد في المنطقة العربية 15 بلداً من بين البلدان ال25 الأكثر معاناة من شح المياه في العالم. ومما يزيد الوضع تعقيداً أن البلدان العربية جميعها ما عدا بلداً واحداً تعتمد على موارد المياه العذبة السطحية أو الجوفية العابرة للحدود الدولية لتلبي احتياجاتها من الماء، لكن الماء بكل بساطة لا يكفي. ولقد أكدت جائحة كوفيد-19 من جديد أهمية المياه من أجل صحة الإنسان. وبالتوازي مع ذلك لا يزال تغير المناخ والنزاع يؤثران على توفر المياه والقدرة على ضمان إتاحتها للجميع. وتتأثر النظم الإيكولوجية والمدن بالكوارث المتصلة بالمياه، وتسهم في إحداث الخسائر والأضرار وموجات النزوح. كما أن الزراعة لا تزال تستهلك أكبر حصة من المياه في المنطقة، معرضة بشدة لتقلبات الأسعار ولا سيما في أوقات الأزمات التي نواجهها اليوم. الممثلون والخبراء الموقرون، سنناقش اليوم التقدم الذي أحرزته المنطقة في تحقيق غايات الهدف 6 من أهداف التنمية المستدامة من خلال التقرير المرحلي لعام 2021 حول تنفيذ الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية في المنطقة العربية، المؤشر 651، الذي يعد تتويجاً لتعاون مثمر بين الأسكوا ومركز البيئة والمياه التابع لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للبيئة UNEP-DHI. ويتبع ذلك تقرير أولي كان صدر في العام 2019 عن المؤشر 651. غير أن مناقشاتنا اليوم ستتناول أكثر من ذلك بكثير، لأن عقد العمل من أجل الماء أبرز دور الماء الأساسي باعتباره رابطاً رئيسياً في دفع التنمية المستدامة وأهمية الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية لتحقيق الأهداف الاجتماعية والاقتصادية والبيئية. كما سنناقش بعض عوامل التمكين الرئيسية لتسريع تنفيذ الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية، وأهمية إنشاء آلية تشاور وطنية قوية تحضيراً للجولة التالية في 2023 لتقديم التقارير حول المؤشر 651 لأهداف التنمية المستدامة، وإمكانية التنسيق مع نقاط الاتصال الوطنية للمؤشر 652 حول التعاون في مجال المياه العابرة للحدود، لما هنالك من نقاط مشتركة بين المؤشرين. علما أن الأسكوا تصدر بالتنسيق مع اللجنة الاقتصادية الأوروبا UNECE واليونسكو تقارير إقليمية للمؤشر 652. الزملاء المقرون، أود في الختام أن أعرب عن تقديري لفريق العمل المشترك بين UNEP-DHI والأسكوا الذي أسهم في إعداد التقارير الإقليمية للإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية. كما أود أن أعرب عن تقديري لنقاط الاتصال الوطنية معنا اليوم الذين يبذلون جهود جبارة لتنسيق الإبلاغ على الصعيد الوطني. وأعرب أيضا عن امتناني لحكومة السويد التي رافقتنا منذ البداية في دعم العمل الإقليمي في مجال المياه من أجل التنمية المستدامة، على سخائها في دعم هذه الندوة والإجراءات الإقليمية التي تسهم في التقدم نحو تحقيق أهداف عقد العمل من أجل الماء. وأشكر أيضا زملائنا في شراكة المياه العالمية GWP للمشاركة اليوم وللدعم المقدم من خلال برنامج دعم الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية الخاص بالهدف 6 من أهداف التنمية المستدامة. وأكد لكم أن الأسكوا ستستمر في العمل مع الجميع لصون الأمن المائي في البلدان الشحيحة بالمياه ولتحقيق مستقبل ينعم فيه الجميع بالأمن المائي والحياة الكريمة. وأتمنى ندوة مثمرة للجميع. فبرنامج العمل اليوم برنامج سوف يبتدئ بإعطاء لمحة حول التقدم المحرز في تنفيذ الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية على الصعيد العالمي، ومن ثم عرض حول نتائج التقرير المرحلي لعام 2021 حول تنفيذ الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية في المنطقة العربية. يلي ذلك مداخلة من قبل نقاط الاتصال الوطنية للمؤشر 651 لأهداف التنمية المستدامة، ومن ثم عرض حول الدعم المتاح والسبل للمضي قدما في تحقيق أهداف الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية. سوف أبدأ بإعطاء الكلمة للسيد بول غليني، كبير المستشارين تقنيا من مركز البيئة والمياه التابع لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للبيئة UNEP-DHI، لإعطائنا لمحة حول التقدم المحرز في تنفيذ الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية على الصعيد المائي. ويلي ذلك مداخلة أو عرض حول نتائج التقرير المرحلي لعام 2021 يعطيها السيد أو الدكتور أحمد الغروري المؤلف الرئيسي للتقرير معنا. Paul, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Ziad, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Paul Glennie, and I'm a senior technical advisor at the UNEP-DHI Center on Water and Environment. And at UNEP-DHI, we support the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, to collect and analyze country reporting on SDG indicator 6.5.1 on integrated water resources management, or IWRM, as it's known. We've been very pleased to be collaborating with ESQA on the monitoring and reporting on IWRM implementation in the Arab region for several years now, including the last 2 status reports that we have produced in collaboration with ESQA in 2019 and 2021. Next slide, please. So the presentation will be in 2 parts. Part 1 I'll just go through the global findings briefly, and then hand over to my colleague to go through the regional key findings. And then in part 2, we'll zoom in a little bit more on the 4 key dimensions of IWRM. Next slide, please. Yeah. So to start with, on slide 1, just to remind everyone, some of you will know, but not everyone maybe will know, that the indicator is measured through a country survey with 33 questions covering these 4 key dimensions of IWRM. And each question is scored on a scale of 0 to 100. And the overall indicator score is an average of the question scores. And one very important aspect of the country reporting on indicator 6.5.1 is the stakeholder consultation process, which takes place in every country to gather data and collectively agree on the scores and the reasons for each score for each question. And we'll have some discussion later in the webinar on country experiences with this from the 2020 reporting round. Next slide, please. So at the global level, we've had very good coverage on almost all countries reporting. We've had 186 countries reporting across the two rounds in 2017 and 2020. And 171 of these have reported in both years. And this has allowed us to measure progress towards SDG target 6.5. And we measure the degree of IWRM implementation in 6 categories, from very low to very high. So from the red colors to the blue colors on this figure, on a scale of 0 to 100. Now, the good news is that there has been some progress, as you will see from the figure on the right, and the global average has increased from 49% in 2017 to 54% in 2020. However, as you can see from the pie chart, there are still more than 85 countries with lower levels of IWRM implementation. So there's clearly still some work to be done. And as outlined by Ziad in his introduction, that the importance of implementing IWRM in the region is well recognized. So that's a very quick snapshot at the global level. I would now like to hand you over to my colleague, Dr. Ahmed Legrori, to present the regional findings. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good morning, good afternoon, and even good evening for Paul. Before actually giving the presentation, I would like actually to thank the colleagues who contributed to this work, Dr. Ziad Khiyat, Dr. Asma Al-Qasmi, Dr. Porgleni, and Ms. Tracy Zarour. Paul said it earlier, the presentation is in 2 parts. One, global and regional SDG 6.5.1 key findings, and the second part deals with the progress and key findings on the 4 IWRM dimensions. This map actually, which is projected now, shows the varying levels of stakeholder consultation in the region. I don't expect you to be able to see the different shades of blue in the map, but the main message here is that several countries organize strong stakeholder consultation processes, but there is still scope for greater engagement in other countries. The consultation processes are described in the national reports themselves, which may be downloaded from the link which is given on the slide. Out of the 22 Arab states, 21 have submitted reports. 15 of them reported in both 2017 and 2020. 4 countries reused their baseline submissions from 2017, and 2, Palestine and Syria, submitted data for the first time. This shows significant commitment for countries in the region to implementing IWRM, despite the difficult times imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic and other challenges. Next slide, please. From 2017 to 2020, it was also said by Paul earlier, the Arab region witnessed some progress in the IWRM implementation as the regional average increased from institutionalizing and basic implementation to adequate implementation of IWRM elements. Yet, the Arab region is off track to reach SDG 6.5 target, and needs to urgently double its rate of IWRM implementation to reach the 2030 target. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So I think for the sake of time, I'll skip many things which are on the slides. And I guess Ziad will be happy to share the slide with anyone who is interested. So on a positive note, real and rapid progress is still possible. In fact, 12 countries reported in 2020 that they have at least a good capacity for IWRM implementation, with 4 of these meeting IWRM objectives with good geographic coverage and stakeholder engagement. 5 countries made substantial progress between 2017 and 2020, and there is room for exchange between highly performing countries and those that need improvement. Next slide, please. The main key findings from this project are related to 3 bottlenecks that need to be addressed quickly. 1, financing, which has the lowest average score at medium-low level of implementation among the 4 IWRM dimensions, and requires an improved political will and more convincing of the finance ministry about the value of IWRM implementation. The second is aquifer management instruments, which level of progress is limited, and shared best practices, knowledge, and expertise between countries based on the international experience for groundwater is very important. The third dimension is transboundary or shared water resources, for which very few countries have active operational arrangements with neighbors. 4 countries did not even report on transboundary waters, even though they share waters with riparian countries. There is a need to strengthen regional frameworks for cooperation and engage with international conventions, treaties, and implement those that exist. Next slide, please. The Arab countries reported on several constraints that would constitute priority areas for the acceleration of IWRM implementation. The main ones are given in this slide. I will not go into details for the sake of time. You should know that there is a distinction between political will and political situation. The political will refers to the lack of knowledge and weak understanding of IWRM concepts, sometimes at high government and strategic levels, while political situation denotes vulnerable political conditions such as occupation, war, and economic hardship. Next slide, please. Based on the analysis of the input received from Arab countries, the main regional recommendations for a promising way forward are, and I will simply give you, I would say, the headings. 1, strengthening the political will. 2, coordinating financing and leveraging climate financing. 3, ensuring coherent governance within and access sectors and across sectors by promoting enabling environments, coordination within and outside the water sector, and inclusive public and private sector participation. Next slide, please. 4th, improving availability and access to data and information with special attention to transboundary and shared water resources. 5, building capacity and engaging research by improving human capacity. 6, leveraging innovation beyond technology and fit for purpose technologies such as digital water, advanced laboratories to monitor water quality, and research and development projects, as well as innovation beyond technology, such as financing, governance, regulation, modern management, etc. Last but not least, unleashing female and youth potential, enriching gender equality at all levels, which is a strong pillar for IWRM implementation. I move now to part 2 of this presentation. Next, please. I will start by giving an overview of the 4 dimensions before giving some details for each dimension. And I must tell you that I will need to skip a lot of details which are given in the slides. And as I said earlier, this may be shared with you. On this slide, the averages and the progress levels between 2017 and 2020 for these 4 dimensions are close to those of the world. We can say that the Arab region has adequate capacity to implement IWRM elements for 3 dimensions and the long-term program, which is the medium-high level. I think that Paul described the different levels which are used in this study. While financing, which is at the medium level, is at its debut of implementation. And we said it again and again that financing is an issue, and it's not simply in the Arab region, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It was said earlier that IWRM financing is one of the bottlenecks for the successful implementation of IWRM in the region. Therefore, water financial resources should be increased and revenue raising for water services needs to be improved. These averages may mask important differences between countries in the region. Next, please. The first dimension deals with the development and implementation of laws, policies, and plans. Out of the 7 elements in this dimension, 6 are implemented at medium-high level, which means that on average, the Arab region has good potential for their implementation. Transboundary, which was identified as one of the bottlenecks, needs a lot of improvement because it is implemented at medium-low level. The progress between 2017 and 2020 from 47% to 56% is good. But the dimension needs acceleration to meet the target of 2030. The enabling environments are in place at national level, and the capacity and knowledge need to be transferred from central governments to local authorities, basin entities, water users, private sector, etc. More attention should be given to transboundary water and intercooperation to support the southern sub-region that lags behind the other 3 sub-regions that are Gulf Cooperation countries, the Maghreb region, and the Mashriq region. The regional organizations are to intensify their collaboration and explore advanced support means. Next slide, please. When laws, policies, and plans, and this slide represents the enabling environment. When laws, policies, and plans for IWRM are established, their implementation requires institutions with clear mandates and sufficient capacity and resources. The geographic coverage and stakeholder engagement for cross-sectoral coordination, which is at almost high level, 70%, is generally good on average. The lowest performance in this dimension is recorded for the participation of vulnerable groups, which stands at a medium-low level of implementation, 36%. This aspect is newly introduced in the 2020 countries' national reporting. Several improvements are identified for the way forward. One, enhance the understanding of authorities about the importance to identify and give consideration to vulnerable groups relevant to the water sector and about the best means to involve them in decision-making. Two, put in place policies and legal frameworks that facilitate the effective participation of vulnerable groups in water resources planning and management. Three, provide special funding for such engagement. Now we move to the progress between 2017 and 2020, which looks good. It moved from 51% to 58%, despite the fact that some countries decreased their level of implementation for important IWRM elements, such as the private sector participation. The observed disparities between countries and sub-regions in the between countries, it ranges from 19 to 100%, and in the sub-regions it ranges from 32% to 78%. So these disparities call for stronger cooperation to disseminate good practices and share experiences amongst the different Arab countries and the different sub-regions. Next, please. The third dimension of is management instruments. All the elements of this dimension are in the upper level of medium-low to medium-high implementation categories, between 46% and 65%, which means good capacity for implementation. However, more attention should be given to ecosystems, basins, aquifers, and transboundary water. There's also the need to invest in effective data and information sharing systems at the national and regional levels to monitor water availability, use, and quality. The rates of progress between 2017 and 2020 need to be urgently accelerated in order to meet the 2030 objectives. The region moved from 51% to 54%. The gap between countries, which is very high, it covers the 10 to 90 range, and the sub-regions, the gap covers 27 to 75%. These gaps, both between countries and between sub-regions, need to be reduced through greater coordination and experience sharing between countries within the framework of the regional organizations and the League of Arab States. In addition, all the countries need to be equipped with the right management instruments to monitor the evolving water situation and increase use efficiency and the increasingly scarce water resources. Next slide, please. Last but not least, and we said it earlier, financing is something we need actually to pay attention to in the Arab region and also worldwide. In the Arab region, financing IWRM implementation has the lowest average score, 46%, which is medium low, out of the 4 IWRM dimensions, which indicates that this dimension is not given the appropriate attention, although the success of IWRM development and management is tightly linked to its budgeting and financing. The countries are doing better at the national level, medium high, 53%, compared to the other levels, 37%, medium low. Apart from 3 countries which reported that funding is available and all planned projects are under implementation or completed, both at national and subnational levels. The other countries need to diversify financial resources, combine public and other financing sources, including private investment, and raise revenues through tariffs and fee recovery for water services and uses. The budget allocation for infrastructure is better at national compared to subnational, basin, or transboundary levels. We have 53% for the national level and 37% for the other levels. The disparities between countries and sub-regions requires more knowledge and experience sharing initiatives and even financial support between the good performing countries and those countries that need to improve their implementation level. I must say here that the disparities between countries are huge. They range between 7 and 100%, and between sub-regions, 32% to 78%. With 8 countries having limited progress, and need urgent acceleration of IWRM implementation, the progress between 2017 and 2020 is not satisfactory because it simply moved from 41% to 46%. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, both Paul and Ahmed, for this comprehensive presentation that gave an overview on IWRM implementation at the global to the regional scale. And we see some commonalities and some specificities for the region and on some of the challenges and the progress that has been made between 2017 and 2020, knowing that implementation does take time with IWRM, and it's a long-term process that we will look at. Before taking questions from participants, there's the possibility either typing your question in that chat or in the Q&A or raising your hand. We would like to look at some of the country experiences in this process of reporting on 651 and lessons learned from this process and on the participatory process with the national counterparts. As Paul mentioned, the process of reporting on indicator 651 includes a national consultation that national focal points are encouraged to consult with national partners and stakeholders on filling the survey. So we will take some focal points to see what has been learned from that process. But also, more importantly, what are the steps? What's the way forward for the next reporting process? And more importantly, on how we are learning from this reporting process to move forward with implementing IWRM in your countries. So we will start with Mr. Abdullahi Hassan, who's the National IWRM Advisor at the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources in Somalia. Mr. Abdullahi, if you could unmute and share with us your experiences.
Yeah, thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. And I'm really appreciated and honor for me to be here today. And really, it's very important that we are sharing experience from country to country for the implementation of IWRM. Can I share the screen, or I can?
Yes, if you wish, you could.
Yeah, one sec. Is it visible to anyone?
We see it, but if you can put it in presentation mode, but that would be great. And if you could try to remain with the allotted time, that would be great also.
Okay.
Can you expand to presentation mode? Yes, now it's perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I will not take much time. It's only allocated for 5 minutes. We will have a lot of discussions on it.
That's
but
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
I will give you country context and the 4 indicators that have already been presented and compiled by different countries. So those who are submitted, Somalia was including enabling environment, institutions and participations, management, students, and financing sectors. The federal government of Somalia is committed to realization and objective of growth and development and of the implementation of IWRM, and it has been prioritized in the National Development Plan. Water management and development also is essential to Somali growth and development because it ties to the country's economic sectors like agriculture and livestock. Since we submitted the report, we have achieved a very great milestones from 2020 up to 2022 by the implementation of IWRM at national and subnational levels as well. And one of the enabling environments that have been developed since we submitted, but also before it was, Somalia has a national development plan, which focuses mainly on, and part of the section of the water sector mainly focus on an IWRM needs an IWRM implementation process. But also, most importantly, we developed the National Water Resources Strategy in 2021. It has been launched in August last year. And we have already made implementation, particularly focusing on institutional capacity need assessment, institutional capacity development, and strengthening both federal institutions and also state and subnational institutions. But if you look at goal 2, which is mainly focused on IWRM operations, there is other national documents, including Shabelle Basin Diagnosis and Strategic Action Plan. We will develop already and launch 2022, National Hydromet Policy, National Agricultural Policy and Strategies, Livestock Policy and Strategies, Climate Change and Environmental Issues, and many other national documents being developed for the last year and the last 2 years. All of them, we also prioritize implementation of IWRM one way to another. And I cannot talk all of them, and each one has its own specific objectives and strategic action plans. For institutions, we have developed and we have engaged a lot of institutions, both public and private sectors, at the federal institutions, and starting from the line ministries, Ministry of Agriculture, Irrigation, Ministry of Disaster Management, Livestock, Environment, are working together with the Ministry of Water for the implementation of IWRM in their specific, in their respective and sectoral policies, plans, and priorities. We discussed that each sector has to be included, and everything has to be integrated approach, and IWRM and indicators has to be given priorities in their respective institutions as well. So we also engage for the private sectors, for like academia, universities, and water agencies at the private level. And we have built the capacities. For the last 2 years, we have done very tremendous capacity building in IWRM implementation process, and both in Mogadishu, the capital city, but also all states in Somalia, where we have done capacity for IWRM for every state over 10 days or 5 days, respectively, focusing on challenges and discuss about the implementation of IWRM priorities in their respective institutions at the local and the sub-state level as well. So we started the implementation from layout foundation, where we have prioritizing capacities strengthening of the government leadership. Coordination has to be improved, and also improving the financing arrangements. We have a lot of discussion with the Ministry of Finance, with the different parliamentary committees, where they are focused on national water committees and the parliament, both household. We have 2 parliaments, and the upper parliament and the lower parliament. As Honorable Station mentioned, the finance is a challenge, particularly in Somali context, where the country comes from long-term or emergencies or experiences of civil war, and now towards to the development. So we put as a phase 1 the layout foundations, and the second phase now we have implemented for this for 2020 itself and 2021 was building the capacity of the institutions, focusing on a water sector in particular. So we brought all the key institutions together. Particularly, we focus mainly and strengthen the capacity of the government institutions at different levels, national and state. But finally, we brought also together from private sectors. The gender issues has to also be well considered. We considered all different stakeholders from one state to another, at least to understand where the implementation of IWRM was a challenge exists, and we identified the key IWRM institutional capacity and challenges at sub-state level as well. Within the strategies that we have developed last year and been launched already, as you see, goal 2, I don't want to take other goals, it focuses on to operationalize integrated water resource management. And this is one of the great achievements. Now people understand what's IWRM, what's the concept of IWRM, application of IWRM, what are the key challenges, and we develop subsector strategies within this goal. So we achieved now significantly some of the key priorities. Particularly, we focus on capacity development, but a lot of need has to be done for the next 5 years as per the strategy. So, and the goal 2 of the strategy is now implementing under progress, and much more has been achieved already. So we developed like 13 flagship projects within the strategy, but mainly focused on IWRM issues, starting from the flagship 0, which is enhancing governance capacity, preparation of the national documents, improving the coordination mechanisms, but also implementation of the water sector at sub-state levels. So we started from the flagship 1 up to flagship 13, where we focused on institutional capacity, policy development, implementation of the subsector strategies, and in general, ensuring coordinations, building the capacities, and realization of the operationalization of IWRM at all levels in Somalia. Though despite the challenges, but we say that we achieved significance for the last 2 years. There is a lot of programs and projects implemented by the Federal Ministry of Energy and Water Resources together with the sub-state levels, mainly from, and this, and I took an example, but it focused mainly sectoral capacity, growth development, and governance frameworks. So we have like sustainable water resource management and through the GIZ. We have water for agropastoral productivity and resilience through the World Bank, and we have also integrated water resource management from the UNEP-DHI and UNDP from the GEF. We have also other promoting resilience, where we are focusing on short-term and medium-term and long-term capacities. And to inform you that this year, 2022, we are launching a master's degree for integrated water resource management at the Somali National University, supported by SIDA, together with the government. And this will be the first IWRM degree level being in Somalia. And there is no even long-term capacity in Somalia context. So you can understand where we are now and where we are achieving in the next 2 years. We have also other programs by different donors, including World Bank, African Development Bank, where we mainly focusing on IWRM in a specific way, one to another. The way forward, the federal government of Somalia committed IWRM implementation at national and local level, and we will make sure that we will report accordingly as per the requirement. And a lot have been achieved and great milestones for the last year, though there is a challenge for the COVID-19. But after the COVID, we really put our efforts for capacity development as part of the institutionalization and operationalization of the IWRM through institutional capacity development and trainings. I thank you. Sorry if I took much more time.
No, it's fine. Thank you. That was quite comprehensive on the way forward and what's being implemented in Somalia. I'm just looking for, we've invited focal points from other countries that have indicated a consultation process at the national level. I'm just making sure who has signed in and is participating with us. Just looking at through the list, Madam Hayat bin Mansour, if you wish to make a intervention, please go ahead. Madam Hayat bin Mansour.
صباح النور وصباح النور
صباح النور. تفضلي.
حياة بن منصور، نقطة اتصال من الجمهورية التونسية. قد قمنا بتقرير 2017 و2020 مع التعاون مع الإدارات الخاصة بالمياه، إدارات التنمية، أغلبية إدارات الجمهورية التونسية، وقمنا بتقرير 2020. الآن سنستعد لتقرير 2021 2023 مع العفو. وقمنا باتصالات مع الاتفاقية العالمية للمياه التي تقوم ب إعانة الفريق على تجاوز المرحلة الثانية، كيفية كيفية إدارة التنمية. ما المعذرة، أردت أن أتكلم بالفرنسية ولكن مجبرة أن أتكلم بالعربية. قمنا بأول اجتماع مع الاتفاقية العالمية للمياه في جوان، وسنقوم آخر شهر أوت مع وضع خارطة كيف سنقوم بالوركشوب مع جميع الفرق. قمنا بفريق نويودو للإدارات كلها، كل واحد سنهتم بموضوع، وسنتابع على أساس قيام سنقوم بالتقرير 2023. هذا خلاصة ما سيقع بالنسبة لأن نقطة اتصال الرسمية السيد لطفي الفريقي أحيل على المعاش.
نعم.
وأنا في الوقت هذا أعوضه في نقطة الاتصال، وسنقوم باللازم إن شاء الله، وسيكون التقرير حاضر من هنا إلى سنة 2023. وشكرا.
شكرا جزيلا مدام حياة بن منصور على المداخلة القيمة حول الآلية الوطنية للإبلاغ عن المؤشر 651 والجهود والتحضيرات للإبلاغ في الدورة الثالثة العام القادم حول المؤشر 651. Now I'll open the floor for any questions on the presentation, or if anyone would like to make an intervention on their processes and at the national level. To ask a question, please raise your hand and we will Mr. محمد رشيد، تفضل. سيد محمد الرشيد تفضل. لو بالإمكان تعرف عن نفسك وبعدين السؤال.
نعم، أنا المهندس محمد رشيد، أمين عام سابق لوزارة المياه ومستشار معالي وزير المياه حاليا. شكرا على الدعوة الكريمة.
بس لو سمحت، من أي دولة لو سمحت؟
من الأردن.
من الأردن. يا هلا يا هلا.
أهلا فيك. طبعا إحنا من أفقر دول العالم بالمياه، معروف.
نعم.
يا سيدي، أنا صحيح الموضوع هام جدا، وبشكركم على الدعوة الكريمة وعلى الاهتمام بالموضوع. لكن أنا اللي بحكيه إنه الدول العربية تقريبا نسبة عالية منها تعاني من شح المياه، والأولويات قد تختلف من بلد لآخر، لكن هناك قواسم مشتركة. من ناحية أنا بركز على موضوع البيانات والموضوع التمويل، هاي الموضوعين مهمات جدا. دقة البيانات، يعني بجوز بالتمبلت تبع المؤشر 651 موضوع مهم جدا، موضوع البيانات، لأنه خاصة إذا في بحكي على الترابط بين المؤشر 651 و 652 بالمياه المشتركة. بجوز على الأغلب ما في تعاون بين الدول لجمع البيانات، وتكون زي ما تحكي بنك معلومات اللي تكون في بيانات دقيقة حتى يتم دراستها وتحويلها لمعلومات وبناء استراتيجيات واضحة وسياسات واضحة على ضوء البيانات المتوفرة. فأنا بركز على إنه يكون في دعم في أعتقد قبل سنة تم الموافقة على لجنة خبراء المياه العرب جامعة الدول العربية، فيا ريت إنه من المنظمات الدولية يكون في تعاون معها، بتسهل عملية التعاون بين الدول وجمع البيانات بطريقة أفضل. وشكرا جزيلا.
شكرا لحضرتك من الأردن. أي أسئلة تاني؟ ناخد سؤال من السيد.
Ziad, there is a question actually
Yes.
in the QA.
If you'd like to answer it, this is, I think, to you, addressed to you. Would you like to read it and answer it, Dr. Ahmed?
Yes. هل سيكون تغير المناخ وآثاره مثل الجفاف وندرة المياه عاملا هاما يدفع باتجاه التعاون بين الدول العربية وجاراتها غير العربية، أم سيكون ذلك سببا لتمسك دول المنبع بالسياسات التي تتبعها حتى الآن والتي تتعارض إلى حد كبير مع ما جاء في القانون الدولي والاتفاقيات ذات الصلة ولا سيما اتفاقيات عام 97. Okay, to answer this question, I must say that the Arab region has a lot of issues with water resources. The gentleman from Jordan talked about this, and it is well known to everyone. In the report, if you look at, we had actually two reasons to advocate for cooperation between the Arab states and also between the Arab states and the neighboring countries outside the Arab region. The first reason is the transboundary waters. We've seen it as a bottleneck, so there is a need now to improve cooperation between riparian countries that are sharing water resources, both within the Arab region and also with countries outside the Arab region. And the second reason is the gap in the implementation of IWRM dimensions. There is a huge gap for certain items between the Arab countries. And it's good actually to do some experience sharing and collaboration and cooperation to help actually those who need to improve the aspects that need to be improved. Now, the climate change is actually another factor that enhances the stress of water in the region. The Arab region has a lot of frameworks for cooperation and collaboration. We have actually the League of Arab States, and we have also some regional, networks or unions. I can mention a success story and the story that needs to be improved. In the Arab region, we have, to my knowledge now, two unions. The first one is the Arab Maghreb Union. Unfortunately, it does not actually operate well for the time being. And then that's the non-success story. And then the success story is the Gulf Cooperation Council. I refer you to the report because we have even a box for this success story, because they have actually developed a unified water strategy 2016-2035. And in this strategy, they explain the way they will actually work on implementing IWRM and dealing with all the water issues in the sub-region, which is the Gulf Cooperation region. The Arab Ministerial Water Council also advocates cooperation between the Arab countries when it comes to water resources. And I refer you here to the Arab Strategy for Water Security for the period 2010-2030. So I think that there is a need already with the problems we know in the Arab region with regard to water resources. There is a need for more collaboration and cooperation, experience sharing, and even actually some countries that are endowed with good financial resources to help sometimes those who are in need of those resources, because we discussed also in the presentation and in the report that financing is an issue in the Arab region. Thank you. I hope that I answered the question.
I think you did. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I have one more raised hand from, I don't see a name, HP. Please unmute and ask your questions. Unmute. الاسم المشارك HP. لو عندك سؤال unmute. I guess there's no. Unmute, please. But he's not unmuting, I guess.
There is a question in the QA, Ziad.
Yes.
You want to address it?
Okay. So the question says, many thanks to the speakers, and frankly, it's a great effort. I hope that there will be participation of civil society organization in preparing the report and collecting information. Governments may be somewhat optimistic, and organizations are close to the stakeholders, I mean the beneficiaries. Engineer Intisar Raza, APSU for Water Sustainability Organization, an NGO from Iraq. And I'll turn to Paul maybe to, I think the process of reporting does call for a wide stakeholder engagement at the national level. Maybe you can answer that question and explain more on that process. And then we will move on, I guess, with the support that GWP is also giving to this national process. Paul?
Thank you. Thank you, Ziad. And thank you for the question. Yes, it's a very important consideration that the breadth of stakeholder consultations in each country to report on the indicator. And there's, as I said, there's 33 different questions, and each one of those questions covers all these different aspects of water resources management. And we very much encourage all countries to have quite a robust stakeholder consultation process, including NGOs, including the academic sector, including government agencies from across the different sectors. And I think actually the example of Tunisia is a very good one, as I understand that they had a very comprehensive stakeholder consultation process. And what we have found from many countries saying that their experience is that not only has the stakeholder consultation led to a more accurate report, shall we say, but it has greatly helped it has helped all the stakeholders in the country to understand different sides of the situation, different challenges. It has in itself been a capacity building exercise and an opportunity for dialogue. So the countries that have run the more robust stakeholder consultation processes have really reported a lot of value that they have gained, not just in reporting, but then moving forward to making plans and prioritizing the key challenges and moving on to implementation. And we'll get a little bit more to that, some of those aspects in the next presentation. Thank you. Thank you,
Paul. I don't see any other raised hands, and I think this is a good question and the lead to our next presentation on the support available and way forward that will be presented by Mr. Vangelis Konstantinos. I hope I didn't butcher that name. I'm sorry if I did. Executive Secretary and Regional Coordinator from Global Water Partnership Mediterranean. We'll share from the presentation from our side, and you can start.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is an excellent bridge, the last question, and the response by Paul has been an excellent bridge for this presentation that is on the SDG 6 IWRM support program. But before getting into that, let me thank you sincerely for the invitation and the opportunity to present for GWP, and of course for the supporters and partners of this IWRM support program, so UNEP, CAPNET, UNDP, and of course my organization GWP, this set of remarks. And congratulate you, of course, for an excellent report for the Arab region. Yet again, congratulations to ESCWA and UNEP-DHI. We can go to the next slide. So the SDG 6 IWRM support program is a global line of action that relates to target 6.5.1, aiming to assist governments with the engagement of stakeholders in doing three things, having actually three modules of action. These are the three stages as they are presented in this slide. The first stage aims to identify the challenges by bringing together the stakeholders to understand the status of IWRM in the country, bring up challenges and at the same time opportunities. The second stage relates to developing action plans to address the challenges by turning these into action lines of country-led investment projects on water resources management. And the third module, stage 3, is the implementation of solutions. So picking from the action plans that are being developed in stage 2 to get down into actionable points of work that retrofit back into stage 1 when the next round of consultation comes for reporting at country level. We can go to the next slide, please. So at the global level, you see the map here with the countries that have been engaged marked in green. These are more than 70, and this relates to stage 1, so the identification of the situation. For the Arab region, this type of work took place in Tunisia and in Somalia, as it has been reported already in this meeting by the focal points, and in Lebanon. Next slide. And this engaged actually the range of stakeholders in very rich discussions, and Paul commented already on the quality of the information and the reports that have been produced. Next slide. And when we go to stages 2 and 3, we have an ongoing process in Tunisia that was commented upon by Mrs. Ben Mansour, and we have a completed one of stage 3 in Somalia. Next slide, please. And the next one. Okay. So what are the tools that are available to support the countries through the support program? First of all, there is an IWRM acceleration package that is a resource to support and guide countries throughout the process, or an intro, let's say, or a tutorial. And this includes a free online course in 3 languages that present how the process has been set up and how this leads into action plans and to their implementation. There is assistance provided to interested countries like those mentioned for the different steps, and for this round the beneficiary countries have been Tunisia, Somalia, and Lebanon. There is an IWRM action plan searcher that provides for different tools that can be accessed through online databases where all the material that is being produced is available to those interested as food for thought, but also for going deeper in understanding how this program is implemented on the ground and what is the potential for further action. And last but not least, there is a community of practice, multilingual one, to share experiences that is also facilitated by an IWRM action hub in the GWP toolbox. Next slide, please. These are visuals of what I mentioned before. So on your left hand, you see the IWRM data portal is a rich online database that includes the national surveys and their summaries, interactive data out of the questions, 33 questions of the that provide for the indicators for the report, and of course the actual global and regional reports like the one that is being presented today for the Arab region. And on your right hand, on the support program, you see some of the visuals, some of the pages. Again, rich material that includes the package I mentioned, the action plan searcher, but of course also the country activities that could provide inspiration for further action in other countries and contributing to sharing lessons, including within the community of practice. Next slide, please. Now, on the way forward and having ahead of us the 2023 report, again, there will be support for the stage 1 stakeholder consultation and identification of the challenges, gaps, and of course the progress that has taken place since the last report. And it is very important that all the Arab countries are engaged in this line, and actually very encouraging to see that 2 countries have joined in addition the last report. Then assistance to countries in action planning for stage 2, and at the same time implementation of selected activities out of this prioritization of stage 2 into a stage 3 module of action. It is important, and it will be the focus of the next line of work, to give emphasis on supporting resource mobilization for the implementation of activities. Financing has been identified among the top challenges in the countries. This includes also the setting up or the coordination of action in order to lead into implementation. So maybe this can be one of the focus areas according to the country's wishes. Last but not least is the strengthening and the expansion of thematic support and guidance in order to provide greater clarity on the impact of actions and actually get together the different lines of work that are taking place at the country level. The presentation of the Somalian focal point was very much on this line, commenting and presenting different lines of actions that make the substance or the implementation capacity for getting in real into the priorities that are being defined in the action plan and getting into improving the target. Thank you very much, and ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Evangelist, for this comprehensive presentation. And I think it was great explaining the stages of support from stage 1 to stage 3, from the reporting to the planning to the implementation. And I think this is what we saw is needed in the reporting that we've done. The ultimate goal is not just reporting, but it's actually identifying the challenges and the ways forward. And I think it's great for countries to know of what support is out there for them throughout the 3 stages. There's a question that was specifically addressed to you. Maybe I'll just allow المهندسة سارة المطيري لو حبيتي تسألي السؤال تفضلي. unmute. مهندس سارة.
أهلا سيد زياد.
تفضلي.
شكرا سيد زياد، شكرا لجميع السيدات والسادة الحضور للعرض الافتراضي. أنا سؤالي بالنسبة للمركز البيئة والمياه التابع للأمم المتحدة، يعني ما هي الوسائل أو المساعدات التي تم تقديمها أو كان مزمع تقديمها للتخفيف من آثار كوفيد-19، لأنها أثرت أصلاً على الإدارة المتكاملة للموارد المائية سواء في المنطقة العربية أو بول العالم، وخاصة في الدول يعني ذات الدخول المحدودة أو المتوسطة. أو الدول التي تشهد عدم استقرار إما بسبب حروب أو تعاني من شح المياه. شاكرة سيد زياد. شكرا.
شكرا. Benjus, would you like to answer that, or and then Paul maybe also address that?
Yeah. Well, the support program has not been designed to address the particular challenge. It is an ongoing program that relates to the COVID challenge. I mean, it is an ongoing program that relates to the IWRM implementation, from the reporting down to action planning and making real the objectives. It doesn't have the capacity to go at the level needed to address COVID challenges that have been severe in the region. Hopefully we're better today. Still, there are many unknowns for the future. So in a nutshell, there has been no particular response to that. Actually, COVID presented challenges in advancing the work, given the fact that it has limited the opportunities for in-person engagement of stakeholders that is in the very heart of this line of work. But maybe Paul would like to comment further.
Thank you, Evangelos. Yes, and thank you for the question. It's a very good one. I'd like to make two main points in my response. The first is the impact on reporting and under the indicator, and then I will come to the implementation side and the wider impacts throughout the water sector. So the first point on the reporting is that, yes, we acknowledge there were some challenges in getting stakeholders together physically. At the same time, in some ways, it actually enabled many countries to have a more diverse stakeholder consultation process through online or blended consultation processes. And many countries around the world reported actually that this was a good lesson learned for next time, to have these kind of blended with online and in-person consultation processes. It enabled a wider range of stakeholders from across the countries to contribute. And we provided some guidance during 2020 when the COVID pandemic started on running the online or blended consultation processes. But I realize that's a relatively minor part of it. And then to the wider impact of COVID and other impacts that you mentioned to the water sector. So we, UNEP-DHI and UNEP, in fact, we are not funding agencies, and we do not have large sums of money to support implementation in the countries. So what we offer through the SDG 6 IWRM support program is mostly some seed funding to facilitate bringing the stakeholders together to develop these action plans and agree on the priorities to move forward. And then once the priorities are set by the countries, and these may be around water supply and sanitation, they may be around other impacts of COVID, they may be around institutional strengthening or financing, that then is the stage 3 side of things on implementation. And we may then be able to provide some assistance in identifying sources of funding for those activities. We may also be able to assist in providing some guidance in the design of the activities. We may be able to support in providing some capacity building to kickstart some of those activities. I hope that's answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We have a raised hand from Asim Salah. ممكن التعريف عن نفسك واسأل السؤال.
أهلا وسهلا، مساء الخير، صباح الخير للجميع. My name is Asim Salah. I'm the environmental focal point at UNDP Saudi Arabia. Actually, I have 2 questions. Maybe the first one will go to Dr. Ahmed, and the second questions to Mr. Benjels, if I may. My first question is to Dr. Ahmed. since we are talking about the IWRM, and we all know that it is about the processes in general. So I would like to see the best practices in terms of how we can embed the digitalization in the process of integrated water resources management. So if you do have any best practices around the globe, that will be appreciated to share with us the best practices in that. The second question is about the support that you provided vendors, because at this stage we are opening a dialogue with the Saudi government in order to prepare the report on SDG 6. So I would like to know the mechanism that you are using and the time frame that you can provide it to assist us in going into that direction. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay, I'm muting. Okay, Dr. Ahmed, would you like to start, and then we will turn over to Vangelis on best practices for IWM implementation.
Thank you very much for the question. I may heard the word digitalization. Was it there actually? Best practices in digitalization, or was it best practices in general?
No, in digitalization, in digital, how we can use.
Yeah, digital. Yeah, that's. I heard the word digitalization. Yeah.
Yes.
I would refer you actually to the report, because best practices, there are plenty today in the use of, in the implementation of IWRM. And we mentioned actually in the presentation, we talked about actually the technology in general. And we came to the conclusion that actually not only we need actually to use the technology, the technical aspects of the technology in the field, like, for example, in agriculture, but also in the management of the water resources. And there are plenty of success stories throughout the world, and some Arab countries have developed actually tools that allow for them to better manage water resources, both at the level of the administration, the management, and the technical aspects in the field. With COVID actually having hit the world, and it appeared that the countries that were prepared, well prepared or better prepared in using the technology in general in IWRM, were able actually to ensure continuity of the water and sanitation services than the others who were not well prepared. So I cannot really, otherwise I'll make actually some diplomatic error if I mention one country or two. But I think if you simply use internet, you will find actually that actually the technology is used today widely in many Arab countries to both actually manage the water resources, and when I say manage, it's the administration, and then using the technology, for example, to detect, you know that actually in most Arab countries, they have the problem of leaks, for example, in cities, leaks of water. There's a great loss actually of water through leaks. The water is used actually, in some countries, it's up to 90% of the water resources are used in agriculture. And sometimes they use the water without actually paying attention to the quantity they're using. And the technology is helping a lot on those aspects. So I think if you do some search on the internet, and I will be willing to exchange with you on this individually, then actually you will see that there are actually a lot of success stories and a lot of very good experiences in the Arab region and also worldwide.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. And we will share also a link of examples of best practices in the chat box provided by Paul for the users to also visit. And then turning to you, Vangelis, the question is how to access the support. And I think this is not only for KSA, and I think for a lot of the participating countries and maybe focal points. What's the mechanism to approach UNEP or GWP to ask for the support at the different stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, if you could elaborate more on that.
Thank you, Ziad. Before I get into that question, maybe I can extend a bit on the previous one. The link to the IWRM toolbox of GWP will be shared, and thank you, Paul, for sharing that. And this provides for an action hub with good practices, and not on the digitalization per se. It extends to policy making, action planning, implementation on the ground. Digitalization is only a small part of that. Since the interest is particularly on that line, I would suggest looking into some resources, at least that I'm aware of in the European Union. There is a huge library of such technologies and implementation of this in the Mediterranean, and definitely in the Arab region, in the European Commission, in the Director General for Research. And this is through the Horizon 2020 projects that are ongoing for the last decade or more. And most recently, the PRIMA Foundation projects that are part of the EU, and also the Joint Research Center of the European Union. I mentioned these three sources because this, digitalization is in the very heart of the interventions that are being supported by the EU, and there is an ambition of growing this agenda on the side of the green agenda of the European Union. Since all of you can allow me, I can even make a link to a previous question about geometries, political geometries that can engage in supporting further action in the Arab countries beyond the Arab region or within the Arab region, but also having other dimensions. And I will mention only two, to the UMA and to the Arab League, definitely, and the GCC that was mentioned before. So let me mention the Union for the Mediterranean, which is a Euromed institution that involves all Arab countries of the Mediterranean, but it does not include sub-Saharan Arab countries and the Gulf. But also the UNEP, the Mediterranean Action Plan, when it gets into the environmental considerations and the Barcelona Convention. Now, going to the question finally about how you get there into the support program. GWP at the global level and UNEP-DHI are the custodians of this project. So the request should reach them, and we have Paul here, who is the best to answer on the specifics. Well, my comment would be only on the supply and demand, let's say, of requests that are being submitted, and the limitation of resources. Paul mentioned that already, because here we're talking about a global program. Definitely supporting the Arab region, at least for GWP Mediterranean, should be a priority. But Paul, I turn it to you for more information.
Yeah, thank you, Vangelis. And I'm conscious of time. I think we don't have that long left, but briefly, we'll post two email addresses and the two links to this websites again, where people, anyone from the countries can indeed write to us, and we can discuss what support is needed and available, and if we can make a match there. And we'll also be working. We'd like to work more closely with ESQA in terms of providing support and working more on the ground. in the region as well in the coming few years. So yeah, and I think there was a question on the timing with regard to, I think it was a colleague from Saudi Arabia, the timing of them preparing a SDG 6 report, I think. And so at the moment, there's not much many more funds for 2022. So this is all run under the umbrella of the UN Water Integrated Monitoring Initiative for the whole of SDG 6. And the next phase of that will be starting in 2023, where there will be some more funds as well, also to go through the support program to support countries. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Paul. And I think we can, any countries that would like to reach out either to UNEP-DHI or GWP, we're happy to also to point you in that direction as needed, and as Paul said. So we're coming to the end of the allotted time. Before closing, I'd like to thank the participants that have been with us, and also to thank Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Asma, who's not with us today, but they've been instrumental in preparing the first and the second report. Would like to thank GWP, Mr. Vangelis Konstantinos, for being with us, and also extending the support to the countries in the Arab region. And of course, we value and again thank Paul for and UNEP-DHI for the partnership that we've had for the last few years in preparing the regional reports, and also in supporting countries in the Arab region. Before I close, maybe I'll give a final quick word. Let me start with Dr. Ahmed. Any final words?
Yes, I would also like to thank you, Ziad, for this great opportunity, and thank actually Paul for his actually wonderful collaboration, and thank actually Vangelis and all the colleagues from ESQA, and also thank the participants for having actually taken the time to listen to us. And as you said, we're willing actually to answer any questions off record, and they have actually our coordinates, and all the best to everyone.
Thank you, Ahmed. Vangelis, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yet only 2 words, but first of all, thank you very much. Then to comment on the commitment of the countries on the process, because this is, really the essence. This is in the core of having the reporting being reliable, and having, a clear way forward. And this, I will only repeat, it goes through a stakeholder engagement in order to have it done on the appropriate manner, and to have the capacities to implement it on the ground. So these are key. Along with this is the role of regional organizations, institutions like ESQA, but also other organizations in providing the assistance, and hopefully the SDG IWRM support program of UNEP-DHI and GWP provide for that, and we will continue doing so.
Thank you, Vangelis. Paul?
Thank you, Ziad, and thanks to all colleagues for the excellent ongoing collaboration that we look forward to continuing with. And echoing Vangelis's comments about our thanks to everyone in the countries, not just for those that have participated in the reporting process officially for Indicator 651, but everyone working on water resources management in the country. It's only through your efforts that we can move forward and create a better world on the ground and deal with all the challenges that each country is facing. So thank you for your efforts in that. And yeah, we're free to feel free to contact us. I think our emails are in the presentations, which can be shared after this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, we'll definitely share out the presentations to the attendees today, and your emails are on them. So again, I'd like to thank you, colleagues, for your participation and your commitment to implementing IWRM, and again, thank the focal points, and not to forget also the focal points of 652, who've also invited, and we have the co-custodians UNESCO and UNECE also with us today, and ESCWA is looking forward to increasing the coordination between the focal points of the two indicators of the 6.5, the 651 and the 652, given the commonalities between the reporting process and the objectives of these two indicators. And I call on all the focal points and all of the attendees here to reach out to the organizations that have taken part of this workshop, ESCWA, GWP, and UNEP-DHI, for the support and to benefit from the reporting process, in a sense, to gather momentum towards the implementation of IWRM. And there are several processes, such as the Water Action Decade and the midterm comprehensive review, that could also be a momentous moment to push forward the implementation of IWRM and increase the political will, and maybe increase the availed financing towards the implementation of IWRM. Again, I thank you all. I thank all of the participants, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us for any further follow-up to this. Thank you.